Bleach meets Naruto, the mad scientist who revolutionized shinobi warfare. Please like, share, and subscribe. Episode 81, There are too many ninjas in the Senju clan. Figures wearing green vests walked out of the light. It was the Konoha shinobi. They actually used the barrier array of the Tensong technique to teleport here. Assholes. The third Raikage was furious, and a thick electric light came out of his body. Crackling. The electric light condensed into a ball, forming a blue bodysuit wrapped around the body. Lightning armor. Hell thrust four-handed. The figure of the third generation movie suddenly disappeared. In the eyes of the crowd, a blue electric light broke through the air, pounced out like a mad dragon, and fiercely penetrated dozens of Konoha shinobi in the array. Bang! 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 All these Konoha shinobi were knocked away and ejected like cannonballs. However, at the moment of collision, a layer of circuit-like azure blue light lit up on the skin of all Konoha shinobi. Blood stasis technique. The force field created by this blood stasis technique greatly offsets the power of hell thrust. Bang! The Konoha shinobi who were flung out fell to the ground, creating deep pits on the ground. But the next moment, Fatty stood up as if nothing had happened. What a terrible power! The blood stasis technique is completely invincible. As expected of the third Raikage, the ninjutsu hell thrust is well-deserved. These Konoha shinobi patted the king on their clothes in a daze. The light of the blood stasis technique on their skin completely disappeared, and this technique was forcibly broken by the hell thrust. At the same time, the remaining power knocked them all away. But the strange thing is, they were clearly knocked away, but they had no injuries at all, not even a broken skin. Impossible. The third Raikage's expression became serious, and he said to himself, even if it was 4 fingers, the power of this technique is enough to penetrate their bodies after breaking the blood-wearing technique. Why are you not injured? The last touch is a little wrong. These guys' bodies, 313, seem too tough? Senju people? The third Raikage narrowed his eyes, and his mind flashed. In front, the Konoha shinobi who were knocked away stood up and dusted themselves off, then suddenly scattered and ran in all directions. Not good. They are going to destroy the village. We have to stop them quickly. Third generation, let Umbu go. The cloud shinobi around looked at the third Raikage anxiously. The third Raikage, however, had a calm face and said lightly, they can't make any waves, don't worry about it. The problem now is this teleportation barrier array. He looked at the magic circle. In the magic circle, neither gushed out. The Tensong technique did not stop. Can this thing be destroyed? The third Raikage pointed at the magic circle and asked. No. A ninja in charge of the magic circle said with sweat on his forehead, the opponent has locked the space, there is no way to stop it. Swish. The air was sharp. The third Raikage turned into lightning, and his 3 fingers stabbed fiercely at the magic circle on the ground. Bang. His 3 fingers were bounced off, as if stabbed on an indestructible shield, and could not be destroyed at all. I think so. The third Raikage calmly put down his hand and nodded, since the opponent dares to use our magic circle to teleport, it is certain that it is fixed. The cloud shinobi around them couldn't help but tense up. Everyone knew that it was a terrible thing that the teleportation array couldn't be closed. This meant that Konoha could send people over at any time to attack their cloud shinobi base. Damn it, it was clearly our plan. Damn Konoha. What should we do now, third generation sir? Everyone looked at the third Raikage nervously. Don't worry, let Bubi come. The third Raikage snorted coldly, if they don't close the array, I'll let Bubi throw the tailed beast bomb over and see who can last longer. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. Good idea. Go ahead. I'm here. The third Raikage waved his hand, you go call Bubi, and then cooperate with Umbu to besiege the teleported Konoha shinobi. Yes. Everyone obeyed the order and left excitedly. In the original place, the third Raikage took off his clothes, revealing a body of bronze muscles, standing like a hill in front of the magic circle. Crackling. The lightning clothes on his body were highly condensed, emitting high-frequency electric current sounds, and a few flashes of lightning jumped out, blasting several bowl-sized holes in the surrounding ground. Bubi can maintain the tailed beast for a long time, and 8 tails is also very cooperative. If we really fight, we can perform tailed beast bomb several times. At worst, we can bring the little girl wooden golem. Although wooden golem cannot completely control the power of 4 tails, it can also provide some help. The third Raikage thought in his heart and sorted out his thoughts. However, this detailed arrangement still could not eliminate the uneasiness in his heart. The third Raikage looked intently and saw a tall figure in the white light, which was blurred. This figure was far away in the other side of time and space, in Konoha village. It was not very clear. However, the third Raikage felt a strong fear from this figure. There was a needle piercing his forehead, and his body was trembling. Instinct reminded him that if he didn't run away, he would probably die. If I'm not mistaken, this figure is Orochimaru, right? The third Raikage narrowed his eyes and frowned, thinking, when did he become so strong? On the other side, the Konoha shinobi, who was teleported to Cloud Shinobi, was chased and blocked by a large number of Cloud Shinobi. Bang! A Konoha shinobi wearing sunglasses was intercepted. Lightning style emotion wave. Lightning style lightning column. 2 Cloud Shinobi cast a spell, creating a strong electric current, and fell on this Konoha shinobi. Ninjutsu blood suit technique. The man in sunglasses did not dodge, and quickly completed the seal, and the circuit-like light reappeared on the surface of his skin. Pa! Pa! 2 lightning bolts fell on the man in sunglasses, cancelling out the static blood suit technique. During this period, the man in sunglasses rushed in front of the 2 Cloud Shinobi, holding kunai in both hands, and stabbed them fiercely in the stomach. Without the blood suit technique, you still dare to get close to us? Boy, Cloud Shinobi ninjas are known for their strong physique. The 2 Cloud Shinobi were overjoyed, and pulled out their kunai and swung them. They wanted to fight the man in sunglasses in close combat. Ding ding ding. The kunai collided quickly, splashing sparks. Impossible. How is it possible? The 2 Cloud Shinobi's faces changed immediately. Every time the kunai collided, they felt a huge force, like a hammer hitting down, shaking their hands numb. Shwa shwa shwa. The man in sunglasses waved his hands quickly, leaving after images, and his speed was completely faster than the 2 Cloud Shinobi. The 2 Cloud Shinobi were defeated. He was actually fighting 2 Cloud Shinobi at the same time by himself. With this kind of strength and speed, are you from the Senju clan? One of the Cloud Shinobi frowned deeply. And it's not an ordinary Senju, at least it's at the main vein level. The other Cloud Shinobi also frowned. The 2 secretly groaned. If it was the Senju clan, their physical advantage would be completely invalid. Because the Senju clan is good at physical strength. Bang! After dozens of collisions, the kunai of both sides could not hold up and broke at the same time. The corners of the eyes of the 2 Cloud Shinobi twitched. Because their hoku had been torn and bleeding. The sunglasses man in front of them was too strong, and they couldn't bear it at all. We must keep our distance. I'll cover you. The 2 Cloud Shinobi looked at each other and quickly reached a tacit understanding. They were about to change their tactics. Suddenly, a sharp pain came from the feet of the 2. Ah! The 2 Cloud Shinobi turned pale, and they were in so much pain that they couldn't stand up and fell to the ground together. What is that? Bugs? They looked down at their legs and were horrified to find that they were covered with black bugs. These bugs were eating their flesh, nerves, and bones. It has already climbed up to my thigh. This is a parasite. You are a Senju, why do you have a parasite from the Aburame clan? The 2 Cloud Shinobi looked at the man in sunglasses in shock. When did I say I was from the Senju clan? The man in sunglasses pushed his glasses and said lightly. Wow. More parasites flew out of his sleeves, completely submerging the 2 Cloud Shinobi. Ah. Not far away. A young man with a handsome face, who was obviously a man, but had a feminine temperament. He also engaged in close combat with the 2 Cloud Shinobi. Blood suit technique and lightning style were exchanged. Both sides entered a fast-paced close combat stage. Bang! After dozens of fights, the kunai of both sides broke at the same time. At the same time, the handsome ninjas of Konoha, the 2 Cloud Shinobi, both began to form hand seals. Illusion. However, the handsome ninja of Konoha was faster. He only used 2 seals to complete the spell. Swish. A high-quality Inton chakra fell on the 2 Cloud Shinobi. Illusion? What is this kind of interference technique? The 2 Cloud Shinobi sneered and were about to start their own chakra flow. But they didn't have time. A strong sense of sleepiness surged up, like a tide, drowning the consciousness of the 2. What a strong illusion. This Senju ninja is also good at illusion? The 2 Cloud Shinobi fell asleep. Puff. The handsome man threw 2 kunai and pierced their temples. I didn't expect that after awakening the Senju bloodline, it actually stabilized my mental state and allowed the Kurama clan to exert its full power. The handsome man showed a hint of surprise on his face and murmured. Similar situations occurred in various places around. A team of Cloud Shinobi Umbu who arrived late silently scanned the battlefield. Even through the masks, you can feel that they have a pained and helpless expression on their faces. There are too many ninjas from the Senju clan, right? How can anyone be a Senju? No, those guys are from other ninja clans, but they have the power of Senju. The rumor that the first Hokage disbanded the Senju clan and integrated into Konoha is actually true? The Umbu were surprised. They were silent for a moment and looked ahead. A sturdy young man with a masculine face walked towards them holding a ninja sword. Which family are you from? An Umbu couldn't help but ask in a nagging manner. Don't worry, I'm a real Senju, not one of those mixed blood guys. The young man smiled and pointed at the Senju emblem on his shoulder. That's good. Cloud Shinobi Umbu breathed a sigh of relief. The next moment, both sides rushed towards each other without warning. The previous chat was just a disguise, the purpose was to let the enemy relax their vigilance. But unfortunately, neither side was fooled. Swish. The Senju young man swung a powerful and heavy knife, pulling the air, muffled. A Cloud Shinobi in front of him, his eyelids jumped under the mask, originally intending to block with one hand, changed to holding the kunai with both hands to block the knife. Crack. The slash fell, cutting off the kunai. This Cloud Shinobi was directly separated from the right shoulder and split in half. What? This kind of power, how is it possible? Who are you? Other Cloud Shinobi Umbu was stunned, and their hearts trembled. Their expressions under the masks were horrified. Didn't I say that? The Senju youth kept smiling, rushed towards the other person with a knife, and said with a smile, I am a real Senju clan. Shwa. The powerful and heavy slash fell again. The speed was very fast. There was no time to dodge. The second Cloud Shinobi Umbu was cut in two with one sword. Since he is a real Senju, he must have a stronger bloodline than a mixed blood. The Senju youth ran towards the third person without stopping. Swish. He swung out the slash again, with great force and lightning speed. No fancy moves. Just simple and rough. Fast. Accurate. Fierce. Ah. The enemy had no time to react, could not dodge, could not block. A whole team of Umbu. They were cut in two by the Senju youth. At the barrier array, a young man with long hair, one side white and the other dark green, used the body flicker technique to hurry on his way. As soon as he received the news, Cloud Shinobi set off. It only took him 1 minute to reach the location of the barrier array. Third generation master. Bulubi looked serious and asked the man standing like a hill in front of the magic circle, should I use the leader now? Yes. The third Raikage nodded, looked at the barrier and said, Konoha doesn't seem to want to give up, so we can only use violence. Go ahead, Bulubi. Just use Tail Beast Bomb. The voice fell. Moo. A long and powerful sound came from Bulubi's body, like the cry of an ancient beast. In his body. In a sealed space, a huge beast with a cow's upper body and octopus tentacles in the lower body raised its head and roared. Moo. A large amount of violent chakra gushed out from the beast and was injected into Bubby's body, through the seal. Use it as you like, my power. In reality. Gurgle gurgle. A large piece of blood-red bubbles emerged from Bubby's body, wrapped him up, and formed a layer of light red bubble clothes. Tail Beast clothes. At the same time, a violent and chaotic breath began to spread outward. A radius of 1 kilometer. All ninjas felt a cavity in their chests, breathing became difficult, and their minds became irritable uncontrollably. This suffocating and irritable feeling made them 5.9 faces change at the same time. 8 tails. Did the third generation use Jinchuriki? Such a terrible power, is this the tailed beast? Even if it is hundreds of meters away, it is affected by the tailed beast's chakra. Countless Cloud Shinobi looked up with solemn faces and looked in the direction of the tailed beast's chakra breath. And the Konoha in the battle Shinobi, however, was not panicked at all. They were not affected at all. This was a high degree of trust in Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru. In front of the barrier array, Bubby's expression was somewhat painful. Even if 8 tails allowed it, the tailed beast chakra alone was too much for him to bear. But the tailed beast coat was just the beginning. To use tailed beast bomb, one must enter the stage of tailed beast transformation. Gurgle gurgle. More red bubbles emerged. These bubbles gradually condensed, forming a violently flowing dark red epidermis on the surface of Bubby's body. At the same time, a thick tail began to grow from his coccyx. 2. 8. After all 8 tails grew, Bubby was wrapped in the tailed beast chakra and turned into a huge beast. The lower half of his body was octopus tentacles, and the upper half was a cow's body. Tailed beast transformation. 8 tails, Gyuki. Instantly, within a radius of 3,000 meters, all the ninjas showed painful expressions. The violent tailed beast chakra dissipated unconsciously. The dissipated chakra aura alone made the ninjas feel irritated, their killing intent boiling, and all kinds of negative emotions emerged in their hearts. Even the small animals hidden in the corners were affected. Countless insects, mice, snakes, birds, cats, and dogs frantically pounced on each other and bit each other's bodies. The power of the tailed beast has too many side effects. The third Raikage was also affected, frowning at the huge Gyuki in front of him. He used his strong will to forcefully suppress the restlessness in his heart. Episode 82, the third Raikage is manipulated, and the 8 tails Jinchuriki are defeated. Bubi, can you withstand the erosion of the tailed beast chakra? The third Raikage murmured with a worried expression. Huff. Bubi, who had transformed into a tailed beast, exhaled 2 large breaths. His eyes flashed with irritability, and the thought of killing kept flashing through his mind. But he held back, opened his mouth to the magic circle, and began to refine the yin and yang chakra at a ratio of 2 to 8. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The air began to flow rapidly, making a friction sound. A purple-black sphere appeared, dead and deep, like an extinguished sun, hovering in front of 8 tails' mouth. As the yin and yang chakra continued to be injected, the purple-black sphere expanded rapidly and finally became as big as a house. Is this tailed beast bomb? A cloud shinobi looked up, first startled, then ecstatic. Konoha is doomed. No one can stop the tailed beast bomb. Konoha is going to be blown up. All the cloud shinobi looked at the huge Gyuki excitedly. The ninjas of Konoha felt their hearts sink. They could see clearly that 8 tails Jinchuriki wanted to release tailed beast bomb and blast it to Konoha through the space crack of Tenso technique. Oh no. Tailed beast bomb, there is no good defense. Should we shut down Tenso technique? The Konoha shinobi were in a heavy mood. If Tenso technique is shut down, they can't go back. But before they came, they had already realized it. At the same time, on the opposite side of Tenso technique, Murakumi. Through the beam of light. The third Hokage also saw the tailed beast bomb mentioned by 8 tails, his pupils shrank sharply, and he said in horror, not good. The other side wants to blow tailed beast bomb over here. What should I do? He looked anxiously at Orochimaru and Nara Shintaku. Now the only way seems to be, shut down Tenso technique. This is also the purpose of the third Raikage on the opposite side. Don't worry. But Orochimaru smiled slightly, raised his hand slowly, and casually made a ninja seal. Swish. After the ninja seal was made, a phantom of a huge white snake emerged and crawled out from behind Orochimaru. The moment the white snake phantom appeared, the air suddenly became cold. It was as if winter had come all of a sudden, and the temperature dropped by dozens of degrees. What is this? The third Hokage opened his mouth in astonishment. He felt a huge chakra from the white snake phantom, almost as strong as the tailed beast. Deftant. The white snake phantom spit out its tongue, crawled into the magic circle, and was teleported to Cloud Shinobi Village through the light column. Huh? The third Raikage and Bubi frowned at the same time. A huge white snake phantom passed through the magic circle and was teleported over. Snake? Orochimaru? The two were wondering. Deftoit. The white snake phantom crawled out of the magic circle, suddenly drained some energy from the surrounding environment, and its body was hollowed out and descended on in the world of Cloud Shinobi Village. Hiss. Instantly, a chilly breath emanated from the white snake. The power spread. The temperature dropped suddenly within a radius of several kilometers, as if entering the deep winter season. It's so cold. What is that? A white snake? Something's wrong, my body can't move. Chakra 2 seems to be suppressed. The Cloud Shinobi shook their bodies, and then their faces changed drastically. The chilly breath emanating from the white snake seemed to have an invisible freezing force, suppressing their physical and mental energy. Not only did their strength decrease, but the extraction of chakra also became slow. It was like a river in the deep winter, frozen into ice, unable to flow. Not only that. The influence of 8 tails chakra was also swept away by this gloomy breath. Everyone on the battlefield was forced to calm down. in front of the magic circle. How is it possible? Bullyo's eyes became clear, and the erosion of the tailed beast chakra disappeared under the influence of this gloomy breath. His mind was clearer than ever before. But Bullyo was not happy but shocked. This gloomy breath, while helping him to expel the erosion of the tailed beast chakra, also froze his mind and strength like the cold wind in winter. His body seemed to be filled with lead, heavy and sluggish. Chakra was like dead water, no matter how it was manipulated, there was no response. What's more terrifying is, his thinking has also become sluggish. Every thought appears dozens of times slower than usual, and the brain seems to be rusty, even thinking has become difficult. Bullyo was shocked. But he could not move, and could only watch the white snake stretch out its tail, and gently pick up the tailed beast bomb like picking a fruit. The deep-tailed beast bomb seemed to be completely silent on the white snake's tail. It actually solidified into a purple-black ball. Hiss. The white snake opened its mouth casually, and swallowed the tailed beast bomb into its stomach like eating a fruit. Impossible. How could this happen? That's the tailed beast bomb. It was taken away just like that? Why didn't it explode? What is this white snake? Cloud Shinobi looked at this scene in disbelief. The Konoha shinobi around him were also shocked. They didn't expect that the powerful tailed beast bomb would be solved so easily. Sage. At the same time, in the body of Cloud Shinobi, 8 Tails stood up in surprise, revealing a horrified expression. Still a young immortal? Impossible. In the current environment, how could anyone find a way to become an immortal? Immortal? When Bullyo heard this word, his heart was shocked. You mean, the immortals, like the 3 holy lands? 05? Intermittent thoughts came. Through the connection of chakra, 8 Tails understood what Bullyo meant. It nodded and said solemnly, yes, it is the immortals like the 3 holy lands. Theoretically, this road has been cut off and it is impossible to pass through. But if someone passes through the broken road, there is only one possibility, that person is terribly strong. 8 Tails warned solemnly, Bullyo, you are definitely not his opponent, find a chance to escape quickly. It is very optimistic about Bullyo. This is a rare human who can withstand its chakra, and it does not want to die casually. Bullyo conveyed bitter emotions through chakra. His mind and body were frozen, and he couldn't escape even if he wanted to. At this moment, the third Raikage suddenly let out a roar, his hair and beard were furious, and his momentum exploded. Ah! An even more intense electric current flashed around him, and the original blue electric current coat faintly formed a solid armor. The third Raikage actually broke free from the influence of Orochimaru's power. Hell stab one-handed. He turned into a blue dragon-like lightning and suddenly pierced through the white snake's body. Poof. A blood hole exploded in the white snake's abdomen, the edge of the hole was charred, and the flesh was burned into charcoal by the electric current. A burnt smell emanated. But the white snake didn't care, and a playful look flashed in his eyes. His body suddenly collapsed and turned into countless small white snakes, which were ejected in all directions. Damn it. When the third Raikage saw this scene, his expression became extremely ugly. At this moment, a new figure appeared in the light column of the magic circle. It seemed that someone in the Konoha village across the way approached the teleportation array and cast a look at him. The third Raikage turned his eyes and glanced at him. He saw a pair of eyes shining with gold and silver. These eyes were ethereal and lofty, like gods looking down upon the earth, indifferent and cold, with an unpredictable, mysterious and noble temperament. Being stared at by these eyes, the third Raikage's consciousness was unconsciously dazed for a moment. However, he himself did not notice his daze. Looking for death. The third Raikage turned his head and rushed into the distance, with lightning flashing, like an angry dragon swimming across the earth, and rushed straight into the Cloud Shinobi village. Third generation master. All the Cloud Shinobi were shocked. The next moment, the third Raikage's hell stab pierced through all the Cloud Shinobi on the road and tore their bodies apart. Puff puff puff. Countless pieces of flesh and blood flew. Third generation master, what are you doing? We are one of us. Wake up, third generation master. Stop it, third generation master. Third generation master is under illusion. The Cloud Shinobi were horrified. However, the third Raikage's attack could not be stopped. Lightning flashed in Cloud Shinobi village. In a breath, hundreds of Cloud Shinobi were pierced and their bodies were smashed to the ground. The strange thing is, the Konoha Shinobi along the way were all avoided. The only ones attacked were Cloud Shinobi ninjas. Humph, damn Orochimaru. The third Raikage snorted coldly, his expression cold. In his eyes, he didn't kill his own people, but the white snakes that fled in all directions. He was fighting the enemy. Across the magic circle. Konoha village. Orochimaru looked at the third Raikage who killed his own people, with a surprised look on his face, and said, "You are really amazing, Shintaku." "It's just a trivial illusion." Nara Shintaku smiled indifferently. Hyoka Suigetsu plus Hokage native illusion. Slightly combined. Then imitate the Uchiha clan's Sharingan and activate it by looking at each other. So, it became what it is now. In the moment of eye contact just now, even the peripheral vision was enough for Nara Shintaku to exert an influence, completely distorting the sense of the third generation movie. "You also call this insignificant?" Beside him, the third Hokage was sweating coldly. He looked at the third Raikage on the other side of the magic circle. The other party was flashing with lightning, turning into a thunderous dragon, rushing with an unmatched posture. Such a terrifying power and speed, the third Hokage believed that he could not resist. If it were on the battlefield, I'm afraid he could only be beaten. But now, Nara Shintaku used a technique and means that he didn't know, and easily controlled the third Raikage. The lightning-style chakra mode that the third Raikage was proud of not only failed to kill the enemy, but became a tool to efficiently kill his own people. "Fortunately, I have decided to retreat." The third Hokage thought tremblingly in his heart. "We have to retreat." Jiraiya was assigned to the front line by Orochimaru because of his different opinions. Physical enhancement potion and blood limit awakening potion, these two killing weapons are displayed. The ninjas and civilians will go crazy. The third Hokage sighed in his heart, "If I don't leave, I will stop them from grabbing." Benefits. "I'm afraid I will be kicked out of my position." The third Hokage knows the horror of human hearts. The magic circle can last for another hour. Let the ninjas in the village play when they have time. Orochimaru glanced at the magic circle and turned to walk out. "Third generation, I'll leave this to you." Nara Shintaku also left. "Eh?" The third Hokage was stunned. "Are they leaving now?" Little did he know that the two had watched the show and had a great time. The rest, let the people below clean up. Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru left not long ago. Teams of Konoha shinobi excitedly passed through the teleportation array and headed to Cloud Shinobi Village. At the same time, in the main tent, Jiraiya was discussing the battle plan with a group of jonin. Suddenly, an emergency information channel was transmitted. Jiraiya flipped it open and his face changed. Cloud Shinobi used the Tenso technique to teleport over long distances, to the village to cause damage? What? Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Many people's expressions changed immediately, and their eyes were extremely angry. "Asshole. Damn Cloud Shinobi. I must kill them." Anyone whose home was stolen would be furious. "Wait." Jiraiya called them, looked at the information, and then said, "The village's barrier has been improved by Shintaku and Orochimaru, and it has the effect of detecting space-time fluctuations. The teleportation was discovered at the first time, and Umbu and the barrier team joined forces to capture the teleported Cloud Shinobi." Everyone was relieved when they heard this. As expected of Shintaku-kun. Yes, and Orochimaru Tianrin. With these two, the back of the village must be the safest. But Jiraiya frowned. He looked at the second half of the intelligence, deciphering it in cipher, and his expression changed. 807 What's wrong, Master Jiraiya? Someone noticed his expression change. Are there any other situations? Mitaku and Orochimaru, in turn, used the teleportation array to send our people to Cloud Shinobi Village and sabotage them behind them. Jiraiya's expression was a little heavy, and he said in a low voice, "The sabotage effect is very good, hundreds of Cloud Shinobi have been killed, and Mitaku and Orochimaru have taken action to solve the Eight Tails Jinchuriki and the main generation movie. Now, our people are winning a great victory in Cloud Shinobi Village. The village asked us to attack simultaneously and eliminate Cloud Shinobi's frontline camp." Jiraiya read out the content of the intelligence. The last order made him frown. In his opinion, it was enough to stop Cloud Shinobi's sneak attack plan. But sending people to teleport to Cloud Shinobi Village in reverse, using the same means to cause destruction and mass killing. This cruel practice made Jiraiya unacceptable. Cruel revenge will only intensify the chain of hatred. Jiraiya thought sadly in his heart, "You also want us to attack Cloud Shinobi's frontline camp simultaneously. Are you going to kill all Cloud Shinobi? Too cruel." Shodai has worked hard to establish the current stable situation. Jiraiya's emotions were surging. He raised his head and wanted to persuade everyone to give up attacking the Cloud Shinobi camp. But the moment he raised his head, he was stunned. That's great. I want to kill that group of Cloud Shinobi for a long time. Haha, Shintaku-kun and Orochimaru-sama did a great job. Clear Cloud Shinobi, today. Gentlemen, let's cut the grass and root it out. Everyone gnashed their teeth, killing intent boiling, eyes full of hostility and murderousness. Jiraiya's heart thumped. He realized he couldn't stop his subordinates. This slaughter was bound to happen. Kill. Fire style, Haori of fire technique. 8 trigrams empty palm. Konoha style, 3 moon dance. The ninjas of Konoha were like locusts passing through, quickly strangling Cloud Shinobi's living forces. Blood suit technique. Flying sickle technique. Improved 5 elements escape technique. Physical enhancement potion. Bloodline limit awakening potion. After these 5 enhancements, even if it was just a chunin, it could fight against Cloud Shinobi's jonin. And the original jonin, their strength has expanded to the edge of Kage level. The overall strength of the two sides is not at the same level at all. As soon as they came into contact, the Cloud Shinobi ninjas were crushed and slain, unable to resist. Not to mention, there is also an efficient human meat grinder, the third Raikage, to help. Damn it. Damn Konoha Shinobi. I will never let you go even if I die. A white-haired, brown-skinned girl looked at the Konoha Shinobi in front of her with resentment. Episode 83. The tree gradually comes alive. The picture shows the white-haired girl's Mabui. She held a kunai in her hand and pointed it at her neck. I would rather break than surrender. Ding. But the Konoha Shinobi raised his hand and knocked her kunai away, and at the same time dodged and used a knife to knock the girl unconscious before she could react. It's a little guy with good appearance, maybe Shintaku-kun is interested in it. The girl heard this sentence vaguely before she fainted. Similar situation appeared in many places in Cloud Shinobi at the same time. A few hours later, in the cell of the Technical Development Department, 3 girls with outstanding appearance woke up. Am I dead? Where is this place? How is the village? The 3 girls were terrified and checked their clothes and bodies at the same time. After confirming that there were no strange marks, they breathed a sigh of relief. Then, they looked at each other and exchanged information. My name is Wooden Golem. A girl with pigtails and a mature look was the first to speak. What about you? I haven't seen you before. Are you also a ninja in the village? Another girl with white hair and wheat-colored skin raised her eyebrows. She is the new Jinchuriki of the Two-Tailed. It's normal that you don't know her. The third girl with golden hair spoke. She has a cold expression, but a mature and fiery figure. She is obviously in her early teens, but she has already reached a considerable size. Jinchuriki of the Two-Tailed? The white-haired girl was surprised. Yes. The 2 wooden golems nodded calmly. They were all trapped in the cage, and no identity was important. My name is Samui, you may have heard of me. The blonde girl said. The other 2 people's expressions moved slightly. This is the direct lineage of Cloud Shinobi Village. Special naming method. They have indeed heard of this name. My name is Mabui. The white-haired girl also said her name. She was also a direct member of Cloud Shinobi Village. The 3 girls confirmed each other's identities and breathed a sigh of relief. Although they were captured, at least they had companions around them. Damn Konoha, how dare they capture me? The 2 wooden golems bit their lips and said angrily, the 3rd generation will definitely counterattack and rescue us back to Cloud Shinobi. Mabui nodded after hearing this. She thought so too. The 3rd Raikage strength is like a magic needle that stabilizes the sea, weighing on everyone's heart. Give up this idea. The blonde Samui said coldly, before I was captured, I saw the 3rd Raikage die with my own eyes. What? Impossible. Yuzu Wooden Golem and Mabui were shocked. How could the 3rd generation adults be so strong? How could they die? Yes, who can break the defense of the lightning armor? That is the strongest shield in the ninja world. The 2 did not believe what Samui said. Samui sighed and said in a low voice, the 3rd generation adults woke up at the last moment. He used the hell spike to pierce his own heart. Boom. Yuzu Wooden Golem and Mabui were shocked and their expressions were dull. The 3rd generation adults committed suicide? The lightning armor is the strongest shield, that's right. But the 3rd generation adults' hell spike is also known as the strongest spear. Samui said sadly, it sounds reasonable that the strongest spear breaks through the strongest shield. Yuzu wooden golem and Mabui's brains were blank and there was no reaction. Outside the cell. In a laboratory of the Technology Development Department. I just don't understand. Nara Shintaku said to Orochimaru speechlessly, what do they think of me? Any good-looking female ninjas are sent to me? Am I usually very hungry? 2 Yuzu wooden golems, Mabui, and Samui. 3 girls with outstanding looks were captured alive and sent to the Technical Development Department intact. It was said that they were used to study the lightning style of Cloud Shinobi. Everyone knew what was going on. You can send the people back. Orochimaru said with a smile. Then forget it. Nara Shintaku waved his hand, how can you not eat the meat that is delivered to your mouth? Orochimaru shook his head and laughed. What an old guy who says one thing but does another. However, after living for thousands of years, he can still maintain his passion for the opposite s***x. This old monster's mental state is really good. Orochimaru thought secretly in his heart. Maybe, I should also find a hobby to maintain my mentality? Nara didn't know that Orochimaru's misunderstanding of him was getting deeper and deeper. However, it was not a big problem. The two chatted and walked to the depths of the laboratory and opened a secret door. After passing through the door, there was an ecological park-like area inside. But the strange thing was that in such a large area, there was only a big tree with lush branches and leaves, planted in the middle. There was nothing else. What a beautiful creature. Orochimaru looked at the tree in admiration. Is this the source of chakra, the appearance of the sacred tree? Strong, vigorous, and vigorous. It has the dual characteristics of plants and animals, and is a physical creature and an energy creature, like a spiral of all contradictions, a perfect fusion of yin and yang. Orochimaru's eyes were lost, as if he was looking at a rare treasure. It's not the original sacred tree, it's not even a sub-body, at most it has a little power. Nara Shintaku said lightly. The real sacred tree, even if it has lost its power, is still 10,000 meters high. It's as majestic as if it holds up the world. But the one in front of him is at most a special tree. A little power is enough, as long as enough natural energy is provided, it can slowly develop into the level of a sacred tree. Orochimaru did not give up, but showed expectation, and even if it doesn't reach the level of a sacred tree, it can produce some fruits. Yes. Nara Shintaku nodded. If it weren't for your reminder, I would never have thought that the violent wood style cells are essentially missing a part of their power. Orochimaru couldn't help but say, after the completion, it will show its true form. What I can't imagine is that the complete form is actually a plant, a tree. This makes me wonder, isn't the first generation fire a human? Orochimaru was full of emotion. Under Nara's reminder, he cultivated the wood style cells into the tree in front of him. At first, it really scared him. He even felt resistant to the first Hokage. But then he thought about it, his current body has become a big snake, not a human. That tree doesn't seem to be a big problem? Stop talking nonsense, start cultivating. Nara said coldly. That's right, business is more important. Orochimaru nodded. The two of them personally arranged the ritual to create a special barrier. This barrier has the effect of gathering energy, which will condense natural energy, increase the concentration of this area, and accelerate the growth of this tree. At the same time, Tsuchikage and Cloud Shinobi Village, 2 hidden villages, were breached one after another. A large number of corpses and living people were sent to the Technical Development Department. Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru buried all the worthless materials in the soil, allowing the tree to absorb nutrients from human flesh and blood. Humans are also part of nature. So absorbing humans is also absorbing natural energy. This is easy to understand. With a large supply of materials and high concentrations of natural energy, the tree grows very fast, almost changing every day. In just 1 month, it grew to a height of 20 meters, with twisted roots and leaves like a cover. At first glance, it looks like a century-old tree. It is completely impossible to tell that it is only 2 months old. And as the tree grows vigorously, its higher nature gradually emerges. The tree gradually comes to life. Or rather, it is him. It began to quietly explore the surroundings. When no one is around, its roots will emerge from the soil, like octopus tentacles, groping along the ground inch by inch. At the same time, its branches and leaves will tremble and grow longer, like arms, swaying the ceiling and the surrounding walls. All this happens when no one is around. Whenever someone approaches, it will immediately return to its original state and restore the surrounding soil. His nascent mind is filled with evil and greedy desires. This greedy malice that regards humans as food is silently emanating and quietly spreading in the Technical Development Department. I don't know what's going on, I always feel uneasy recently. Me too. I can't sleep well. It seems that there is a dangerous guy hiding in the corner. I feel the same way. I feel like I'm being watched. Yes, yes, yes. I've been getting goosebumps from time to time recently, and I feel dangerous for no reason. Technical Development Department. The second batch of students talked with frowns. No exception. Since I don't know when, everyone has a strange feeling. Uneasy, scary, terrible. It seems that there is a monster hiding in the dark. It is secretly spying on them. Could it be, those materials are used too much? A student guessed. Everyone shuddered when this was said. They know what the so-called materials are, they are all living people. Ghost. Impossible, Shintaku-kun and Orochimaru-sama are good at the spiritualization technique. If there is a ghost, it will be cleared up immediately. That's right. It should be a psychological effect. Yeah, let's not scare ourselves. The students did not discuss the result. They attributed the reason to their discomfort with seeing humans as research materials. However, the head of the technical department, Balyohu, did not think so. He walked into the tree area with a scroll and an expressionless face. It's time to eat. Balyohu seemed to be talking to himself, or to the tree. He unsealed the scroll and released thousands of corpses inside. Then, he turned the soil with earth style. Buried the corpses underground. Huh. The fruits will be ripe tonight. Balyohu glanced at the branches casually. Fruits with strange shapes, colors, and patterns hung on the branches. Magnet-style fruit. Scorch-style fruit. Ice-style fruit. Storm-style fruit. Steel-style fruit. Dust-style fruit. Lightning-style fruit. Fire-style fruit. Wind-style fruit. Earth-style fruit. Water-style fruit. Yang-style fruit. More than a dozen fruits hung on the branches. This is a follow-up research project of wood-style cells. After wood-style cells developed into a complete tree form, Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru studied the ability of this tree. Provide a certain chakra, and the tree will produce the corresponding fruit. Beiluo tried it himself, providing his own chakra, and produced a fruit with 3 chakra attributes: fire, earth, and thunder. This is exactly the chakra attribute he has now. Then, under the arrangement of Nara Shintaku, he used different materials to conduct experiments. People who do not have the corresponding attribute will have the corresponding chakra attribute after eating it. People who have the corresponding attribute will strengthen the corresponding chakra attribute after eating it. In other words, this tree can produce fruits that improve talents. What a magical power. Obiro looked at the tree in amazement and murmured, "Shodai, where did you get this power from?" Who would have thought? The complete body of wood style, which dominates the ninja world, is actually such a magical tree. Obiro even doubted whether the first Hokage was a human. Can even bloodline limits bear fruit? Bailuva's eyes revealed a deep meaning. The fruits on it now. They were all added later by Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru. There are 7 chakra attributes and different bloodline limits. After eating the fruit, you will also gain corresponding power. If a ninja clan has it, it can guarantee that ninjas who inherit bloodline limits will appear from generation to generation. Bailuva thought, and suddenly shook his head and laughed. No. Such a tree is only used to pass on the bloodline limits of the ninja clan. It's too wasteful. Me. Bailuva's eyes became deep. He stared at the tree deeply. A strange feeling came to his mind. You seem to be alive. Bailuva said secretly in his heart, the abnormality that the students feel is also caused by you, right? He felt that the tree came alive at some point. This does not mean that the tree was originally dead. Instead, Balyohu felt that the tree seemed to have thoughts. It was observing, thinking, and learning. Every word, expression, and movement of the students became the material for the tree to learn. This was a terrifying feeling. It seemed that there was something inhuman, learning how to become a human. Although I don't know why I have this feeling, I believe in my intuition. Balyohu took a last look at the tree and turned away. There is something wrong with this tree. It has an evil nature. I have to remind Shintaku-kun and Minister Orochimaru. Balyohu left. The door was closed. Gurgle gurgle. The soil suddenly bulged up big lumps, as if something thick was wriggling underground. At the same time, a tumor suddenly grew on the trunk of Wang Zhao's tree. This tumor was hideous and strange, and it turned slowly like a human eye, looking left and right, as if observing the surroundings. When observing, the ground was surging layer by layer, and countless roots were crawling and touching. The bodies buried in the soil were devoured in an instant, without even a residue left. It seemed that it gained nutrition from the bodies. The tumor on the trunk suddenly swelled up a big circle and became as big as a basketball. Pa! The bark on the surface of the tumor was broken, and a torn wound appeared. It was like an eye opening its eyelids. However, only streams of sticky sap flowed out of the torn wound, and nothing else was seen. The tree paused for a moment. It seemed that there was not enough nutrition, and it seemed that it was not time. The things that should appear under the tumor did not successfully breed. Swish. The tree was silent for a while and retracted the tumor. The torn bark also healed quickly and recovered as before, without a trace. More people. It rustled its branches and leaves, like a hungry beast, eager to devour the food in front of it. At night. It was time for the fruits to ripen. Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru, along with Hirako, walked into the area where the trees were planted. The three looked up. They saw fruits with full flesh hanging heavily on the branches. Even from dozens of meters away, one could feel the strange power in the fruits. If one could eat all these fruits, that person would have 7 high-intensity nature transformations and multiple powerful bloodline limits. Even an ordinary person would become a Kage-level warrior. But Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru had a calm expression. For them, these fruits were worthless, and they could develop all the bloodline limits and chakra attributes themselves. Hirako also had no desire, but it was not that he didn't want them. Episode 84, Orochimaru, use your soul scalpel to make this tree quiet and obedient. It was because he felt like a thorn in his back, his whole body was shivering, and dense goosebumps appeared on his skin. The feeling of being watched became stronger. Mitaku-kun, Lord Orochimaru. Bailuva took a deep breath and said tremblingly, I think this Tree of Life has a problem. The Tree of Life was a name that Nara and Orochimaru had just casually given it. It has a kind of evil nature. Perhaps we should be more cautious? Bailuva's face was full of anxiety. I know. Nara nodded calmly. Question mark. Bailuva was stunned and turned his head to look in surprise. I saw that Nara and Orochimaru had no change in their expressions, and they stared at the Tree of Life in front of them calmly, as if they had expected it. Bailuva was even more confused. Mitaku-kun? Lord Orochimaru? Do you know that there is a problem with the Tree of Life? Orochimaru did not answer, but just looked at the Tree of Life in admiration, his eyes focused, and his expression was emotional. As if looking at a rare treasure. You haven't read the historical data given to you. Nara Shintaku glanced at Haruhi. Not yet. Haruhi was stunned for a moment. What does this have to do with historical data? He was recently promoted to a supervisor, responsible for taking care of the situation of the Tree of Life on one hand, and managing the second batch of students on the other hand, and he was busy all the time. He saw that those historical data seemed to have nothing to do with the research, so he put them aside for the time being. If you read the data, you will understand that the origin of this tree is not simple at all. Nara Shintaku said slowly, this is the sacred tree that almost destroyed the world 1,000 years ago, a carrier of a trace of power. It is also the source of chakra. It is also the body of the 9-tailed beasts. Haruhi looked stunned. The source of chakra? The body of the tailed beast? The sacred tree that destroyed the world 1,000 years ago? What is this? Mitaku-kun, are you talking about a myth? Haruhi couldn't help asking. Haha, who said mythology isn't real history? Nara Shintaku turned his head and looked at Hirako meaningfully. You should have guessed this too. For example, whether the Sage of 6 Paths really exist, whether the Rinnegan is real, and so on. I can say with certainty that they are all true. All myths are history that has happened. Boom. Hercules was shocked, and a thunderbolt flashed through his mind. His whole mind was shaken. How is this possible? He was too surprised and subconsciously denied it. Nothing is impossible, Hercules. Orochimaru turned his head at this time, looked at him with a smile and said, you look almost the same as when I first knew the truth. Hercules, welcome to the real world. Hercules widened his eyes, and his expression changed rapidly. After a while, he trembled and asked, in other words, my feeling is not wrong? This tree is alive, right? It has its own thoughts and knows how to think. It is observing us. Of course. Orochimaru and Nara Shintaku nodded, confirming his guess. Hiss. Hercules took a breath and looked at the Tree of Life with a look of horror. Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru both confirmed it, which means that there is something wrong with this tree. Don't worry, when have I ever let the experimental sample get out of control? Nara Shintaku smiled and comforted him. Hee. Orochimaru also laughed and said, we even know that when no one is around, the tree of life will stretch out its roots and branches to explore on Friday. And it will also use special perception methods to observe the students outside at all times. Now, most of them have the mind of a 3 or 4-year-old child. Bang! The calm ground suddenly rioted. The roots like spears protruded from the ground and stabbed at Nara Shintaku and the other two. It seemed that the secret was exposed. The tree of life was angry and didn't plan to continue pretending. What? Hercules' face turned pale. This sudden attack made him unable to react in time. The piercing roots instantly appeared before his eyes. Bang! At this moment, a golden barrier unfolded, blocking Bailuhu like a copper wall. These roots pierced the golden barrier, breaking and shattering one after another. And burning with dazzling golden flames. The flames spread rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, they spread from the roots to the branches, and the entire tree of life was ignited. Great light, Xidagarba's Taiyuan mandala. Nara Shintaku's eyes suddenly returned to their true appearance. The golden ring and silver star were bright and dazzling. Bailuhu breathed a sigh of relief, his back was already covered with cold sweat. At this time, the trunk of the tree of life twisted painfully like a living thing. Crack! The bark suddenly burst at the main trunk. A blurry face was revealed in the crack. This face was very similar to that of a human, with the same facial features and contours, but the expression was extremely painful, full of twisted and hideous feelings. Just looking at it made people shudder and feel deeply evil. This guy is really alive. When Bailuhu saw this face, his expression became extremely ugly, monster. When he thought of the past, when he was raising this tree, CCAC, he was secretly spied on and observed. He couldn't help but feel a chill. Roar. The face of the tree of life was revealed, and it opened its dry wood-like mouth and let out a silent howl. Instantly, a terrifying momentum broke out. This was an extremely terrifying and fierce breath, as if it was pure malice and hostility, which made people's hair stand on end. Goosebumps appeared wildly. Are you kidding? Bailuhu's eyes shrank sharply, and a deep fear exploded directly in his mind. As if he had met a natural enemy, he was so scared that he couldn't think normally. There was only one thought left in his mind. Run. 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 It seemed that if he didn't run away, he would be eaten alive in the next moment. Not only him. Outside the planting area of the Tree of Life, all the ninjas in the entire technical development department felt a sense of crisis, of impending disaster. What's going on? My body is shaking. My heart is beating wildly. It seems that something dangerous has appeared nearby. I am actually sweating. Something is wrong. I have never been so scared when fighting for life and death on the battlefield. Everyone realized the abnormality. This is not an illusion or a collective psychological effect that can be explained. There must be some other factors that caused all of them to instinctively warn wildly. Where is Director Orochimaru? We must tell Director Orochimaru. And Director Hirako. Is Shintaku-kun in the technical department today? Everyone was like a headless fly, searching everywhere. Deep in the laboratory. In the barrier that isolates the inside and outside and condenses natural energy at the same time. Angry? Nara Shintaku looked at the rioting tree of life with amusement. Golden flames burned on its body, making crackling sounds, causing the roots of the tree of life to dance in pain and lashing the surrounding walls crazily. Bang bang bang. But every lash was bounced back by the Jizo Taijia barrier. And it created more flames and brought more pain. The tree of life roared silently, and its angry emotions and thoughts were transmitted through the chakra breath. Chakra has the function of transmitting thoughts. Nara, Shintaku, and the other two could easily read the thoughts of the tree. It was a kind of fury of being offended. It was like a king being bullied by his subjects, or like a top predator being hurt by the food on the menu. The tree of life conveyed a feeling of shame. This guy, he regards humans as food. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes and grinned, revealing his white teeth. Swish. The next moment, a huge white snake shadow appeared. The surrounding natural energy was instantly drained. The white snake shadow turned into a solid entity, falling like a pillar of heaven, and slammed the trunk of the tree of life fiercely. Crack. The trunk of the tree of life was shattered and almost broken in half. At the same time, the cold power of the white snake enveloped it. This power did not interfere with the burning of the flame, but penetrated into the body of the Tree of Life, freezing the activity of the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life let out a more painful howl. But the violently twitching roots and branches calmed down and fell back to the ground, as if they had turned back into normal, motionless plants. Under the suppression of Orochimaru's power, the activity of the Tree of Life was suppressed. It was like a dead thing, passively enduring the burning of the flames, unable to make the slightest struggle. This made the Tree of Life even more painful, and it howled and roared repeatedly. Obira was so shocked that his face turned pale, and he had to lean against the wall to barely avoid falling to the ground. Outside. In the entire technical development department, the hearts of the ninjas were beating like drums. The fear was like an invisible big hand, tightly grasping their hearts. But here, in this area where the Tree of Life was planted, Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru had no strange expressions on their faces, and were not affected at all. What a violent fellow, like a wild beast. Orochimaru frowned, a displeased expression flashed across his face. It's hard to use such a violent tree. It can only be destroyed. But if we can cultivate the first Tree of Life, we can cultivate the second one. Orochimaru said, a cold light flashed in his eyes. The uncontrolled sample was worthless in his opinion, so he might as well destroy it. Don't worry, Teacher Orochimaru. Nara Shintaku chuckled and said, I have a plan for this situation. Oh? Orochimaru raised his eyebrows curiously. Obiro also looked at him in surprise. In the eyes of the two, such a violent and ferocious Tree of Life cannot be controlled immediately. The best way is to destroy it. Then cultivate new plants again, and slowly find a way to control it. You made a mistake. Nara Shintaku smiled and said slowly, we don't need a Tree of Life that can be driven like an arm and as obedient as a puppy. We just need a quiet tree. If the Tree of Life stays there peacefully and grows quietly, it will be able to meet our research needs. Hearing this, Orochimaru and Bailuha showed a thoughtful look. Haven't you already mastered the key to making it quiet, Orochimaru teacher? Nara Shintaku said with a smile. Orochimaru was stunned for a moment, and suddenly a flash of inspiration came to him. Yes, it's your soul scalpel. Nara Shintaku said. Swish. Orochimaru's expression was immediately pleasantly surprised. Soul scalpel? Bailuha showed a surprised expression. He knew that Orochimaru's soul weapon was a scalpel, but he didn't know the specific effect. It seems that I can learn a lot today. Bailuha looked forward to it. Ahead. Orochimaru was reminded and summoned his soul scalpel without hesitation. It was an ordinary silver knife, which fell into Orochimaru's hands and was not even very eye-catching. But the Tree of Life seemed to sense a strong threat and began to struggle again. The branches and roots swung wildly. Duh. Nara Shintaku snapped his fingers casually, and the golden flame on the Tree of Life suddenly rose. Huh. The expanding flames, like an invisible mouth, instantly devoured the roots and branches of the Tree of Life, turning these parts into ashes. The Tree of Life trembled violently in pain, and was burned to the point where only life was left. Duh. Nara Shintaku snapped his fingers again, and the golden flame of the Jizo Taikai extinguished and disappeared. The scene was completely handed over to Orochimaru. Don't be afraid, it will be quick. I'll cut very quickly. It won't hurt at all. Orochimaru smiled and walked forward, controlling the huge white snake, winding around the trunk of the Tree of Life like a vine. The snake scales rubbed against the bark, and sparks burst out. It was like two pieces of steel rubbing fiercely. Roar. Roar. The Tree of Life was even more frightened, and its exposed face showed a horrified expression. Hiroshi stood against the wall, his eyes twitching. Such a terrifying Tree of Life was manipulated at will by Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru like a helpless insect. You too, Tuan is a real monster. Hiroshi shouted in his heart. Swish. Orochimaru walked to the Tree of Life, and the soul scalpel in his hand fell without hesitation. The blade was sharp and cut directly into the interior of the Tree of Life. It was like a hot knife through butter. Well, is that so? Orochimaru closed his eyes and used the soul scalpel to sense the situation inside the Tree of Life. He sensed a huge will. This will was violent and ferocious, like a natural evil beast born to devour life. Erase it? No, the will is deeply connected to the body. If it is erased, it will hurt the body and reduce the quality of the Tree of Life. Then cut off the thinking circuit. Orochimaru determined the plan and gently pulled the scalpel. The movement was slow, elegant and calm, as if carving a fine work of art. Roar. 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 But the tree of life trembled in pain, and the expression on its exposed face collapsed directly. Orochimaru's soul scalpel, in a strange way, fell into its will, cutting off the circuit between thoughts and thoughts. It was like a human undergoing pawn surgery. Cutting off the bridge connecting the left and right brains caused personality splitting and mental breakdown. Orochimaru did it more thoroughly. Not only did he cut off the invisible circuits in his will, he also reconnected them randomly, allowing the wrong circuits to be put together, forming a chaotic and disordered mass of thoughts. Yes, thoughts. The will of the tree of life was directly modified into a mass of chaotic thoughts. And these thoughts could not command the body, nor could they be organized and continuous, and could only collide, consume each other over and over again. From the outside. After Orochimaru slid a few knives casually, the tree of life suddenly became quiet. The fierce malice suddenly disappeared. Huh. Beilu who suddenly relaxed and breathed a sigh of relief. In the technical department. A group of ninjas suddenly felt relieved. That sense of crisis disappeared. No more? That feeling of danger is gone. Is it over? Before you figure out what happened, keep alert. That makes sense. It's really okay only after Minister Orochimaru or Shintaku-kun confirms that everything is fine. In the laboratory. The planting area of the tree of life. What's next? Orochimaru took back the soul scalpel, turned his head, and looked at Nara eagerly. What should we do? Since you have thought about the problem of stabilizing the tree of life in advance, then the method of using the tree of life must have been prepared in advance. Being watched by Orochimaru. Nara smiled faintly and said, of course. Episode 85. We can cultivate the Rinnegan. Of course he had thought of a way to use it. And it was a very clever way to use it. Remember what I said before? Nara Shintaku spoke, his tone was faint. The fruit of the sacred tree was eaten by the goddess of the rabbit, and she became the ancestor of chakra. Her eldest son, sage of 6 paths, Otsutsuki Hagoromo, inherited the power of the sacred tree. The symbol of inheritance is the Rinnegan with the power of the universe. Orochimaru nodded calmly. He had already understood all this information. But Hiruha next to him was stunned. Fruit of the sacred tree? Goddess of the rabbit? The ancestor of chakra? Sage of 6 paths? Rinnegan? How come you two are talking about such a huge historical secret as if you were discussing what you ate yesterday? And the two children of the sage of 6 paths are Indra and Ashura. The eldest son, Indra, inherited the power of the eye representing the spirit. The second son, Ashura, inherited the power of the body representing the body. The descendants of the two are the Uchiha and the Senju of the forest. The power of the eye and the body evolved into the bloodline of the Uchiha and the bloodline of the Senju clan today. Orochimaru's expression did not change. He had known all this for a long time. Only Hiru heard it like thunder, his heart was shocked, and he was unbelievable. The Uchiha clan and the Senju clan are actually the descendants of the Sage of 6 Paths in myths and legends. No wonder their bloodline is so strong. It turns out that their ancestors were generous. Hikyu looked confused, and understood many things at once. Compared with other ninja clans, the bloodline of the Senju clan and the Uchiha clan is a gap level of strength. The gap is so big that it is unbelievable. Hikyu once doubted whether pure In-style bloodline or Yang-style bloodline has higher potential. Now that Nara Shintaku tells the secret, he knows that it is not the case. It is their ancestors who belong to Tianjin Kantan. Now, this tree has a trace of the power of the sacred tree, and the sacred tree is the carrier of chakra. You can also understand it as a converter. It can absorb natural energy and convert it into chakra. And providing chakra will convert it into a specific attribute fruit or bloodline fruit. Nara Shintaku paused here. Then the question is. He smiled meaningfully at Orochimaru and asked, if we provide both the eye and the body, what will this converter produce? Boom. Orochimaru's pupils instantly dilated, his hair stood up, and his scalp tingled. A word flashed through his mind like thunder. Rinnegan. Obairu, who was behind him, also opened his eyes wide in shock as if struck by lightning. If we gather the eye and the body together, doesn't that mean we can restore the power of the Sage of 6 Paths? Opulg. Orochimaru laughed tremblingly, his eyes burning, and licked his lips excitedly. I see, no wonder you provide a large number of corpses to make the tree of life grow quickly. It turns out that it is to store nutrients for it. What you really want to cultivate is the Rinnegan. Nara's words made him tremble with excitement. This is the Sage of 6 Paths in mythology. They actually have the opportunity to obtain the power of a legendary figure. How can Orochimaru not be excited? If it weren't for the wrong occasion, Orochimaru would have wanted to transform into the Yamada no Orochi, swinging his tail and head wildly to vent his excitement. Please. Nara smiled and stretched out his hand, making a gesture of invitation. Hee. Orochimaru licked his tongue and refined chakra. Zheng. His eyes suddenly lit up with a blood-red light, emitting a cold pupil power. 3 Magatama appeared. The next moment, the 3 Magatama were connected to form a new pupil pattern as complicated as a chain. Mangekyo Sharingan. Instantly, the area in front of Orochimaru was shrouded in a layer of faint blood light. Everything seemed to be painted with a layer of blood red. The pupil power was amazing. This pupil power was definitely not an ordinary Mangekyo Sharingan, but an eternal level Mangekyo. Obairu's eyelids twitched, and a storm was rising in his heart. Sharingan. Minister Orochimaru actually has Sharingan, and it's Mangekyo. No, wait. Being able to research blood limit awakening potions, and having this tree of life that bears blood fruit, it should be easy to obtain the power of Sharingan. Obairu took a few deep breaths to calm down. He himself could obtain multiple blood power at any time. Nara Shintaku told him that as a benefit of being a supervisor, he could use the fruit of the tree of life at will. Of course, because he was afraid of the tree of life. Obairu didn't eat it himself. He just fed the fruit to different materials as a control group experiment. Good pupil power should be able to use the complete Susanoo, right? Nara Shintaku looked at the pupil light and said in admiration. Haha, I replaced my own eyes with mine and successfully fused the eternal eyes. Orochimaru smiled and explained, with the eternal light, there is no need to worry about honing the pupil power, and it will naturally reach the peak in a short time. Crack. While speaking, Orochimaru stretched out his hand and dug out his own eyes, cutting the nerves and blood vessels. 2 plump and round eyeballs with bloodshot eyes fell into Orochimaru's hands. The eyelids of Hirako behind him jumped. What a wild style. Although he had removed, replaced, and made his own eyes, he didn't know how many pairs he had. But he had never done it to himself. Not to mention, Orochimaru's neat and tidy posture seemed not to dig out a pair of eyes, but to pull out a plug casually. Swish. After Orochimaru dug out the Mangekyo, a pair of new eyes grew in his eye sockets. Next, just give the eyes to the tree of life. Nara Shintaku said calmly, the power of the sacred tree will make the instinct begin to transform. Okay. Orochimaru nodded and threw the Mangekyo Sharingan in his hand casually to the tree of life. Behind him, Obairu looked surprised. Was it too casual? But the next second, he completely overturned this head. Crack. The pair of Mangekyo Sharingan fell on the tree of life, and the bark immediately cracked, gushing out sap. Moreover, the entire tree of life trembled, as if it had obtained something vital. This trembling had nothing to do with will. The instinct of the tree of life was uncontrollably excited. Here it comes. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes and carefully observed the changes of the tree of life. It has begun. Nara Shintaku looked calmly. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The tree of life was shaking, and the fruits hanging on the branches became withered and shrunken one by one. The fruits were actually recycled by the tree of life. Not only that, a large number of branches and leaves shrank and disappeared, as if they were growing in reverse. In the blink of an eye, such a large tree of life became bare. The originally dense branches and leaves only had 2 main branches. One on the left and one on the right, connected to 2 Mangekyo Sharingan, respectively. When these 2 Mangekyo Sharingan were connected by the tree of life, the blood in their eyes disappeared, and a deep sense of mutual understanding emerged. In this purple meaning, a vast and mysterious breath that encompasses everything is exuded. The essence of this breath is extremely high. It appeared for a moment, and it caused an invisible wave, like a stone that hit the long river of fate, causing a wave that should not have appeared. The country of Earth. In a secret underground space. Boom. A tall humanoid monster suddenly trembled all over, and its 9 broken tails swung violently, as if stimulated by something. What's wrong, Gedo statue? Uchiha Madara was shocked. Why did the Gedo statue, which had been quiet all the time, suddenly riot? He frowned and tried to calm it with Rinnegan. But it was useless. The Gedo statue raised its head and roared, as if provoked and threatened. Not only was it not appeased, but it paced back and forth in the underground space like an exploding beast, constantly looking around. It seemed to be looking for something. Tell me what's going on, Gedo statue. Uchiha Madara's face sank, and he asked in an unquestionable tone. Boom. At the same time, the Rinnegan in Uchiha Madara's eyes suddenly released his pupil power. The pupil power was like the sea, impacting the Gedo statue. Bang! The Gedo statue was pressed hard against the wall, smashing a huge hole. The Gedo statue calmed down and obeyed the orders of Uchiha Madara, who had the Rinnegan. What's going on? Uchiha Madara frowned, took a slight breath, and released the suppression of the Gedo statue. His body was too old. Just using the power of these eyes is a bit too much. We have to send the eyes out as soon as possible. Uchiha Madara murmured, looking at the Gedo statue that had calmed down again. He couldn't help but frown. Why did this ugly guy riot just now? He couldn't think of a reason. Not far away. A dark human figure, his eyes became deep. Is the Gedo statue angry? Just now, did you feel threatened? Why? Black Zetsu was also full of doubts. It is Otsutsuki Kagaya, the third son of the goddess of the moon. It was born 1,000 years ago, witnessed the rise and fall of the ninja world for thousands of years, and mastered almost all the information. But, even it doesn't know. Why did the Gedo statue riot just now? Has anything that threatens you appeared? Black Zetsu fell into deep thought. Deep in the earth. Pure land. This is a dark space that was opened up to protect the souls of the dead. Huh? Sage of Six Paths suddenly opened his eyes, revealing a pair of plump purple eyes. Rinnegan. This person who lived thousands of years ago did not disappear, but has been in the Pure Land, guarding the souls of the dead. Just now, the power of the Rinnegan was triggered. Why? In this world, there should be no power that can cause the Rinnegan to fluctuate. Could it be that there is a problem with the Mother's Seal? Please give me flowers. Sage of Six Paths looked up, his eyes lit up with a mysterious purple pupil light. In an instant, his eyes penetrated time and space, crossed countless distances, and saw the moon outside the sky. Watched quietly for a moment. Sage of Six Paths doubtfully retracted his gaze. There is no problem with the seal. What is the reason? Did the future predicted by Gamamaru change? One of the three holy places. Mount Mayaboku. In the palace inside. Great Toad Sage Gamamaru suddenly opened his eyes and woke up from his sleep. Its eyes were fascinated, its brows were frowned, and it muttered to itself, just a moment ago, my ability to predict was triggered. Did the future change? No, I can still see the blue-eyed boy playing with the nine-tailed beasts, and Yui has been watching the ninja world, and he is also looking forward to this future. Gamamaru's expression became confused. For some reason, it felt a palpitation. $719. Something bad has happened in a corner that it didn't notice. Konoha. In the laboratory of the Technology Development Department. Under the Tree of Life. Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru looked at the Tree of Life thoughtfully. To be precise, they were looking at the two Mangekyo Sharingan that had turned into fruits on the Tree of Life. Nurture? No, it's more like completion and cultivation. The potential power of Mangekyo Sharingan is being channeled out. Orochimaru said thoughtfully. Nara Shintaku didn't speak, but a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. He knew the conditions for the birth of Rinnegan. Inter Chakra plus Ashura Chakra can channel the power of the universe and awaken Rinnegan. But, do we have to have the power of these two chakras? Not necessarily. The power of Indra and Ashura is essentially the eye and the body. As their descendants passed down from generation to generation, their bloodline degenerated, and the eyes and body became the Hokage bloodline and bloodline. Although they have degenerated and become sage-like. But the essence has not changed. The Uchiha's bloodline limit is the sage eye. The Senju's bloodline limit is the sage body. These are two incomplete keys. Although they are incomplete keys, they are still keys. As long as the bloodline limits of the two clans are fused, and a trace of the power of the sacred tree is used as a carrier for fusion, the conditions for the awakening of the Rinnegan can be met. It has been verified before that even without the key, the corresponding treasure house can be opened by deception. And now, I have provided two incomplete keys, which can make chakra actively open the treasure house and show the power of the universe. Nara Shintaku narrowed his eyes and thought firmly in his heart. As expected. As the two Mangekyo Sharingan turned into fruits, the power of the wood-style cells in the Tree of Life was being injected into the two Mangekyo. This wood-style power merged with the pupil power. The purple in the eyes became more and more obvious. Look at this speed, it only takes 3 months to get a pair of Rinnegan, right? Orochimaru was excited and his voice was a little hoarse. Feeding more materials should speed up the time. Nikon Kontua said. Really? Orochimaru raised his eyebrows and made a decision without hesitation, then supply the maximum amount of materials to make the tree of life full and satisfied. Hiroshi. Orochimaru suddenly turned around and looked at Hiroshi behind him. Minister Orochimaru. Hiroshi hurriedly straightened his body. Put a hold on other experiments for the time being, and all the materials in the technical department will be used to supply the tree of life, Orochimaru ordered. Yes. Hiroshi nodded without hesitation. Compared with making Rinnegan, other experiments are insignificant. You can totally put it down. I'm really looking forward to the day when they mature. Orochimaru licked his lips and looked at the two Mangekyo Sharingan with burning eyes. Nara Shintaku also looked at them, with a faint light in his eyes. He thought for a while and said to Orochimaru, I'll stay here and watch for the time being. Oh? Orochimaru was a little surprised and asked, is it that serious? Although it is a very precious Rinnegan, the power of the legendary Sage of Six Paths. But that's all. They have wood-style cells and Mangekyo Sharingan. They can create another tree of life anytime and anywhere. Cultivate another pair of Rinnegan. Just in case. Nara Shintaku said lightly. Orochimaru was startled when he heard this. He looked at Nara Shintaku deeply, nodded and said, okay, then I'll leave it to you. Orochimaru suddenly thought of something. Nara Shintaku, this old monster, can reincarnate and practice again. The immortals of the three holy places have survived for thousands of years. What about the Sage of Six Paths? Will he still exist? Moreover, the myths and legends of the past cannot be restored to the Sage of Six Paths. There are also many gods who have disappeared in history. Will those gods still exist in some way?